Hello, I'm Debbie Bell Hosking for FinextraTV in the virtual studio, bringing you part of our Sibos 2024 series. And I'm joined by Jess Turner of Mastercard. We're going to be chatting about open banking, how it's evolving, but also what is the role of AI in open banking. Jess, a big welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Debbie. I'm excited for the conversation.
Me too, and it's lovely to have you here in our virtual studio. I introed open banking there, so let's start off by asking where does open banking stand today globally, and what does it need to be successful?
It's a great start to the conversation. Open banking is in different maturity levels in different markets, and we've seen that really for the past, I would say, 5 to 10 years in different ways, even before it was defined. An example of that is in the US. Really, up until yesterday, it hasn't been a regulated market. Yesterday, 1033 regulation was finalized and published, and so we're seeing what that looks like. But that will help us accelerate and expedite what open banking may mean. And so we'll have to see how that works. And today, US has been very much a commercial-based economy. In Europe, we've seen lots of strong acceleration and growth as they were the first market to really be regulated and bring up this concept of open banking. And then we've seen other markets follow in different ways. One notable one is Australia, which is also a regulated market, but has some difference in nuances. Mastercard is positioned and operates in all three of those markets because of the market maturity and because of the possible interconnectivity over time that can really help with global scale. And so we're excited to see what happens and what proliferates with open banking. But if you think about the genesis of what it's about consumers and small businesses having the ability to use their own data to make their life better in some shape, way, or form, which is different for different people in different markets and based on what they're looking for. It can be as meaningful as creating different ways to look at credit underwriting, all the way to just making a user experience much easier. And there will be more to come. But it really, at the crux of it, it's about where are the markets today. There are other markets that are leaning into open banking, and they're at different levels of maturity. And it's a very domestic thing today. But you can see it will continue to evolve. It will continue to accelerate. And our responsibility, and part of that, is to make sure that we're helping with the infrastructure, helping with policies, helping with standards that make sure that consumers and small businesses win, but that everyone in the ecosystem wins too. All boats rise. Very, very important. Very important. Everyone should win. Everyone in the ecosystem should win from this fairly foundational move to how data is used and the protections and privacies around that.
You speak about everyone must win. You speak about consumers. You chat about data. So how does giving consumers more control and flexibility over their own financial data, how does that drive financial inclusion?
It's done in different ways in different places. I'll start with the US, which is a very developed market and has had, traditional credit scoring for many years. Other markets have not yet, and I think there's lots of opportunity in those markets. But even in the US, 19% of adults don't have a credit score. And that doesn't mean that they're not creditworthy. It means they're credit invisible. So having an ability to leverage your own data and provide that to a third party in a safe and secure and responsible way with very deliberate transparency can allow you to get credit and get access to capital and funds, either as a consumer or a small business that you don't currently have access to, in a way that not only helps consumers and small businesses, but helps the economy overall. Everyone can flourish from that. You have lower risk, you have greater expansion of a product on the lending side, and it's done again in a responsible, transparent way for the consumer or small business. And so that's just one example. You have to imagine that can proliferate around the world, and we can go after markets and places in time where there are no credit scores. There isn't a credit bureau. And there are other things that can move through it. And that's one example. Another is maybe you do have a credit score, and maybe you are in the ecosystem of investing or paying your bills. Having open banking be a major part of your personal financial management tools is really powerful. Being able to know what your cash flow is, how that's working, That's something we spend a lot of time on at Mastercard. How can we help with the data we have access to based on consent, consumer consent, categorizing that in a way that's meaningful to the consumers and small business to understand what is their cash flow, how should they be budgeting, what is responsible financial management. And that's another very powerful tool for everybody, regardless of where you are in your own independence financially. Knowing what you have available to you, knowing how to use it with the right set of data empowers people for financial independence.
It's almost like having a role in your own data. So
That's a great
that's really
analogy. Yes.
interesting. Let's chat about AI now. So, Jess, you do speak about AI in financial services. So, we're talking open banking. I have to ask you, what role do you think AI plays in open banking?
Great question. So AI is critical to so many things. For example, we've been using AI at Mastercard for over 2 decades to secure our network globally. When I think about open banking and what it does today and what it can do, it really, really excites me. So today we use AI within our open banking business to do things like clarify the categorization of the data, which is making the data better so that it can be used with the consumer and small business consent to do the plentitude of things we just talked about in this use case. And we're using AI to do this in a way that's responsible, which is really at the cornerstone of whether or not AI will allow us to innovate like we want to. Leveraging the power of AI in a way that has responsibility, trust, and privacy at its core is the way we can scale in an industry like open banking. An example is personal identifiable information. If it is intended to be removed, it needs to be removed, and it needs to be anonymized in a way that AI can take that data and use it for the protection of consumers and small businesses based on what the consumer and small business want and understand for their consent. Really core principle for Mastercard, and what I'm begging is for the industry. And so we can leverage AI to enrich our data, make it easier to use, innovate at rapid speed, and even the quality of the data we already have access to, just improving that fundamentally can do so many things. But at the center, it has to be with the right privacy, transparency, and responsibility of how we use AI to do this for the betterment of the ecosystem. And so we spend a lot of time on that. I'm really excited about where we are today in our journey, and I'm even more excited about where we're going to go.
You know, Jess, it's been great talking to you, open banking, AI, but this journey certainly is evolving, and it's interesting to hear about how you at Mastercard want to use AI to enrich data, but there's that big responsibility that goes along with it, which you are embracing. So really good to chat to you, Jess, and all the best with your contributions at Sibos.
Great. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was really a pleasure.